The Committee on Environment, Land, Agriculture, and Procurement Reform calls this public hearing to order. It is 9 a.m. on Wednesday, July 5th, 2017. Present with me this morning are, to my right, Senator Will Castro and Senator Tommy Morrison. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. The purpose of this public hearing is to receive testimony on Bill 105-34. It's an act to grant administrative jurisdiction to a portion of Lot 7054-R5 in Jigo to the Chief of Police, Guam Police Department. Bill number 106-34, which is an act to rezone the Lot Naval Air Station Agana 13, the officers' housing area, from agriculture zone to residential R2. Bill 49-34 as substituted by Senator Tommy Morrison. It's an act to amend Section 5213 relative to small purchase procurement. Bill number 86-34 as corrected by the prime sponsor, William M. Castro, J. S. Augustine, L. Luis Muña, and T.A. Morrison, which is an act relative to the establishment of the Marine Conservation Act of 2017. Bill number 107-34, which is an act to grant administrative jurisdiction of those portions of Lot 5, Block 15, Tract 2831, in the municipality of Talafofo to the mayor and the Talafofo Municipal Planning Council for agricultural purposes. And Bill number 115-34, which is an act to grant administrative jurisdiction of Lot number 8, Block 5A, Tract 3241-8, in the municipality of Imadak to the office of the mayor and the Municipal Planning Council. We were originally scheduled to have Bill 134, which has since been withdrawn. This was a bill that was introduced at the request of the Guam Economic Development Authority for the construction of the Simon Sanchez High School, and at their request, the bill has been withdrawn, and they'll be moving forward with Bill 19-34 or 34-19 for the construction of Simon Sanchez High School. And finally, also, we have rescheduled the hearing of Bill 98 regarding tax credits for CLTC rental, and pending receipt of documents and information from the parties involved. Notice of this morning's public hearing was provided to senators, stakeholders, and the local media, as well as published in the Guam Daily Post on June 27th, 5-day notice, and June 30th, 48-hour notice, thus meeting the requirements of the open government law. The committee will continue to receive written testimony until 4 p.m. on Wednesday, July 12th. Please address testimony to Senator Tom Ada, Chairperson, Committee on Environment, Land, Agriculture, and Procurement Reform, and can be dropped to the mailboxes here at the Legislature or emailed to office@senatoradda.org. Well, now, and I also want to welcome Vice Speaker Teresa Lahi and Legislative Secretary Senator Regine Biscoli, and Speaker B.J. Cruz and Senator Luis Muña. Thank you for joining us. So we'll begin with the first Bill 105-34. Chief, you can go ahead and step forward with whoever is going to be presenting information with you. But before we go into your testimony, we're going to go ahead and just give an orientation. Go ahead. please take your seats. We're going to go ahead and give an orientation of where this property is that we are looking at.
The orientation for the property up in Jigo, as you can see on the very top of the graphic there, that is the actual lot that was reserved for GPD under...
Okay, let me go ahead and I'll give the orientation from here. Your audio is not coming in that well. So if you take a look, originally about, I think a couple of months ago, a bill was introduced because under, originally land was reserved for the Chamorro Land Trust up there, as you can see in the top portion of the aerial display, lot 7054, which consists of 2 acres. But the acreage that's actually developable for the Guam Police Department and its development needs, it will actually be less than 2 acres if you were to fold up that pointed part of the property. Further research by the committee found that if you go down to the bottom of the aerial there, you'll see the area that's outlined in red. That is an area that is a 12-acre piece of property. But it is, we call it an undivided interest because it is co-owned between the Department of Land Management and the Chamorro Land Trust. According to Bill 28-18, the CLTC is to receive 8.5 acres of that property, the lot 7054-R5, and the Department of Land Management reserves to itself 3.5 acres. So the map that was developed there, if you follow the yellow line, the frontage part, and you'll see there the Route 1 is off to the left there. You see that gray, that part, if you just follow the cursor. Off just to the top of it is the Jigo Gym, and just below that is the GPA power station. And so if you were to actually run that yellow line that divides that lot 7054-R5, the frontage part is about 3.5 acres. The back part consists of about 8.5 acres. But as I had said, when you take a look at the documents that's available, only says that the Chamorro Land Trust, 8.5 acres of that is to be transferred to the Chamorro Land Trust inventory, and that 3.5 acres is really available under the control of the Department of Land Management. So Bill 105 then proposes to transfer administrative jurisdiction of a 3.5 acre portion of lot 7054-R5 in Jigo to the Guam Police Department. And the lot is to support GPD's requirements for the construction of police service facilities, to include headquarters, a precinct headquarters, evidence storage locker, and any other related GPD facilities. The bill further provides provisions in there that GPD shall select which 3.5 acre portion of lot 7054-R5 is to be transferred for its facilities. And the bill also rezones the lot from agriculture to M1 and public facility. The lot right now is actually being occupied by IBC. I guess they had a license to use it. That license has expired, and it's going to have to require getting IBC to gather its stuff and move it out of there. But certainly this lot that has been identified would probably be more suitable for GPD's needs. Okay, so Chief, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony in reference to Bill 105-34. Before I get started with my testimony, I'd first like to introduce the officers that are with me this morning in the event that the committee, in the event that yourself or any of the committee members have any questions. To my immediate right is my acting police commander and the Operations Bureau Chief, Major Manny Chong. To his right is the Services Bureau Chief, Major Andrew Kitagwa. And to my left is my Investigations Bureau Chief, Captain Chris Castro. Madana Sedus and Hafaday. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the Committee on Environment, Land, Agriculture, and Procurement Reform. I am Joseph Cruz, the Chief of Police for the Guam Police Department, and I am here in my official capacity to render testimony on Bill 105-34, an act to grant administrative jurisdiction to a portion of Lot 7054-R5 that is about 3.5 acres in the municipality of Jigo, as shown in Department of Land Management map number 167FY93, to the Office of the Chief of Police of the Guam Police Department. Currently, the Guam Police Department safeguards evidence and property not belonging to the government in a leased facility and a former construction material warehouse. The Evidence Control Section is staffed and functions in this leased facility to meet this critical objective, during which time GPD's capital improvement efforts to construct a new and modern facility have been underway since my appointment as the Chief of Police in May of 2015. On May 27, 2015, the Guam Police Department developed a scope of work for facility construction, and on October 1, 2015, was granted $1,045,000 from the U.S. Department of Interior to construct an Evidence Control Section facility. The following phased approach to meet this need was provided on the scope of work to the Department of Interior. Number one, within 6 months after receipt of funds, phase 1 of the construction project, which is the land acquisition, will be completed. Number 2, within 3 months of the completion of the land acquisition, the project will be released for competitive bid. And number 3, phase 2 of this construction project, which is the engineering and design, permitting, and construction, will be initiated and completed 18 months after receipt of a purchase order. During the phase 1 effort, GPD identified property for the new ECS facility on 3.5 acres of property in the Jigo vicinity, identified as lot number 7054-4, pursuant to Public Law 22-18, which is an act to reserve government real property for use by the 3 branches of government. At that point in time, GPD also acknowledged that the Department of Public Works' Jigo bus satellite operations existed on that property. As the chair of this committee, you authored Bill 56-34, whereby I provided testimony in support of that bill, with the concern that GPD would not receive the full 3.5 acres originally intended in Public Law 22-18. Presented now in Bill 105-34 is a 3.5 acre portion of lot number 7054-R5, which is sufficient for the current objective of constructing an evidence control facility as well as future growth. GPD has communicated with the Department of Land Management to fulfill Section 2.C with the planned location of 3.5 acre portion on lot number 7054-R5 in anticipation that this bill will be passed into law. Additionally, provided that the task is still pending, the Guam Police Department will appeal to the Director of the Department of Agriculture to prepare an agricultural impact statement to satisfy Section 5 of this bill, in compliance with 21 GCA, Chapter 61, Section 61637. The granting of the administrative jurisdiction of 3.5 acres of lot number 7054-R5 will complete phase 1 of the ECS facility construction project and will allow for phase 2 to begin the engineering and design, permitting, and construction. Grant funds, in turn, will be available for release to put towards a long-awaited need to enhance the critical role of safeguarding evidence and property not belonging to the Guam Police Department. Therefore, on behalf of the entire Guam Police Department, we are in support of this bill and respectfully request for the recommendation mentioned herewith be considered and included in Bill 105-34. Sejus Maasi para Itempo Mizu, thank you for your time and attention to this matter. At this point, I and my staff are subject to any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Speaker Cruz, do you have any questions? Vice Speaker? Yes, okay. Senator Lee? Senator Castro? Senator Morrison? Senator Munoz? Okay, thank you. All right. Yes, please.
Chief, so what is the status of the former bill?
As we understand it, that bill, we had the public hearing. So I'm assuming you're referring to
the status of the bill is I'm holding it in committee, okay, because that that property, which that bill provides 2 acres, but the developable area is actually less than 2 acres.
Yes.
So what will happen, what's contemplated is that if Bill 105 gets enacted, which I have no reason to believe that it won't, we will then rescind that lot that was going to be given to GPD and turn that over to the Chamorro Land Trust inventory.
Just want to know, what will this now includes a police headquarters? That was, I mean, right? Not police, a precinct, police precinct, and
as we are taking a look at the monies that are available for the construction of this project, the monies from the Department of Interior Compact Impact Funding specifically outlines that the monies can only be used for an evidentiary control facility. So as we take a look at it, there are discussions to take a look at the potential of building a police precinct located on that same property. So that's something that we're taking a look at this point in time. We have not identified a funding source at this point in time for a precinct headquarters per se. The Dededo Precinct Command, which is housed in the municipality of Dededo, takes care of all the villages in the north, Jigo, Dededo, and parts of Harmon. So at this point in time, that's where the precinct headquarters is at, but we are taking a look at the possibility of building another headquarters up there on this property, and that is something that we will be discussing with the Guam Housing and Urban Renewal Authority to look at CDBG funding, very similar to that which we have managed to get for our central precinct headquarters that we had the groundbreaking for just last month.
All right, so there's no guarantee that a precinct will be built there, but for sure you're going to go ahead with the evidentiary.
That's correct.
Evidentiary building. And do you have a design for that? How is it going to look from the roadway? I'm just curious how the Jigo residents are going
we
to
have
what
not,
will they be looking at?
Because of the fact that we can't move into phase 2, which is the design, until we acquire the property, we do not know at this moment in time what the design would look like, how it could possibly appear from Marine Corps Drive, but that's something that we're going to be working closely with as we go through the RFP to be able to put the bid out for a contractor to design and build the building for us. So that's something that we're working on, and we're willing to continue to keep this committee informed once we get to that juncture in this process, that we know what the design looks like. We can push that forward to this committee to let the committee know that this is how it will look, as it's being built or as it's being designed by the contractor.
So I'm hoping then that you will reserve a portion of the lot for the precinct if you're only going to design the evidentiary building first. Because before, the other bill was only 2 acres, right? For the
That's
precinct.
correct.
Yeah, I mean for the evidentiary portion. So
yes.
Yeah, I just don't want to be precluded from a precinct later
Absolutely,
on. Okay.
absolutely. That's something we're taking a look at. And again, we're going to be working with GURA as well as other potential funding sources to be able to pay for or to fund for a precinct headquarters in the Jigo area. So we will keep the committee informed as to how we design that so that we can design a building for potential growth. And I mentioned that in my testimony, that the design of the building is not just for the ECS, but for potential growth. And when I mention potential growth, it's for the possibility of a precinct headquarters being built on that property as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Senator Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much, Chief Cruz, for your testimony and for being here to answer some of our questions. This kind of just tags along to the Vice Speaker's question. We all understand that Jigo and Dededo, that area is extremely populated. It's one of the most heavily populated areas on the island. And I just kind of wanted to know, what are the current assets in that area? And you talked a little bit about the potential growth, carving out a portion of this property for maybe a police precinct in the future. Yes. But I want to know what the need is, and I want to know what's existing in the department in that area to respond to members of our community there.
So to answer your question about what exists currently in the village of Jigo, we have worked with the Jigo Mayor's office, who has given us a office there to use as a satellite office right there at the Jigo Mayor's office. So we do have the opportunity for our police officers up in the northern area who are assigned to the beat areas that overwatch Jigo to be able to be stationed there, so that they don't always have to drive south into Dededo to be able to write reports, access the internet, to be able to complete online reporting and what have you. So there is that facility that exists there, but that belongs to the mayors of Jigo, and that's what's up there. As far as potential growth and the need for it, in the Guam Police Department, we've analyzed statistical data for all of 2015. And as we take a look at that data, we've determined that there is a need up in the north. As you had mentioned, it's our most populated area. There are an enormous amount of calls for service up there. Now, to be very frank with you, of the 4 precincts, Tumon Tumuning Precinct actually receives the most calls for service. They by far, of all the 4 precincts, they get more calls for service. However, we do see that the Dededo Precinct command, as an entire command, is a very close second. And because the Dededo Precinct area has the largest population, that places the northern area, the northern districts, at the top of the list for a potential for another precinct or a new precinct. But again, that's something we're taking a look at. So we do see a need for that. If there was going to be any area on the island that is in need of a precinct, it's definitely up in the Jigo area because of the population, only followed by a close second down in Talofofo, only because of the tyranny of distance between Aga Precinct and the eastern side of our island. It takes a long time for my officers to travel down to that area. So coincidentally, I think I've had conversations with Mayor Taitigui, who's here in the public hearing room. And he also is willing to look at properties to be able to do that as well. So there is growth throughout the department. Jigo is one of those areas that we're looking to be able to grow to, which is why we're taking a look at the design of this ECS to do it the correct way so that we can do more with less and not have to look for another piece of property for a precinct headquarters and combine it up there on this lot of property that's being discussed in this bill.
Okay, Suzus Masi. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, and I want to welcome also Senator Talina Nelson for joining us, and Senator Mary Torres. Thank you very much for joining us. Does anybody else have any other questions? I only have, yes, please.
Just one more question, Chief.
Yes, ma'am.
Were you told that the lot 7054-1 was not suitable for that evidentiary control facility? That's the lot in the prior bill.
-1 is at the very top of
that
yes.
triangle shape.
So the issue with that lot is that we do not feel that it would be sufficient to construct the entire evidentiary control section to include a portion for vehicles that need to be processed as evidence. That 2-acre property would be able to fit just the building itself, just the evidentiary control section, minus what we are looking to be able to apportion for the processing of vehicles. So there's the need for that. Now, while we are not in the business of impounding vehicles, we do have to process vehicles and large items, the bigger items of evidence. I mean, anything could be used for evidence. So as such, we need the 3.5 acres, which is why when we provided testimony for Bill 56 and we identified Lot 1, we were also asking about what portion of Lot R5 was available so that we can identify that for the potential of storing vehicles as to be processed as evidence. So, to answer your question directly, Madam Speaker, Lot 1 will suffice, but just for the construction of the facility itself. There's also a need to store and process larger items like vehicles, trucks, and what have you to be processed as evidence, and that's the reason why we're asking for the full 3.5, and we see that the lot of property identified in this bill will be sufficient and meet the intent of the construction of this entire facility. Okay? Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Chief. Since we have the Director of Agriculture here also, I hope that we'll be able to get the agricultural impact statement in a timely manner so that we can get this bill ready for the next session. So thank you for your cooperation on that. If there's no other questions on Bill 105, we'll consider Bill 105-34 as having been duly heard, and we'll just stay in contact as this bill moves forward. Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee members.
Did we get that? All right, we're going to go ahead and proceed with the next bill, which is Bill number 106-34. It's an act relative to rezoning of Lot Naval Air Station, Agania 13, the officers' housing area, from agriculture to residential R2. Please put up the West Tizen PowerPoint exhibit so that we can get an orientation. So this is the area that directly south of this area is the Cars Plus. And if you follow the yellow line below, that's the Tizan Parkway going towards the airport, which is to the right. So the property in question is the property that's enclosed by the yellow lines. And this is property that was returned by the military in 2000. And it was returned with the intention, and that intention was further affirmed by the Tizan Reuse Master Plan that was developed by Government of Guam, that they would continue the use of this area as a housing area. And so if you take a look, just to kind of put the boundaries of this property, you'll see right there, there's a shopette. That's where that shopette is. That's the far western corner of this property. And then you have the housing area off to the left there. And then there's the large green space to the far left. And to the west of that is the Calvo residential compound. So, so basically what Bill 106 does is that it seeks to facilitate the development of West Tizan, previously known as Lot Naval Air Station Agana 13 Officers Housing Area. The bill intends to provide the opportunity to rezone the lots in that area from agricultural A to residential up to R2, as was envisioned in the Tizan Reuse Master Plan, and to do this rezoning through legislation. This rezoning will enable the landowners to maximize the use of their properties. Some of the provisions of the bill, one is that, first of all, rezoning will be voluntary. In other words, if a landowner wishes to retain the agricultural zoning on their property, then they can certainly do so. But for those who wish to make maximum use of that property, they are given the option to rezone it up to R2. But the landowners will be given 180 days to affirm, 180 days from enactment to affirm whether they want their properties rezoned, or 180 days from the date of conclusion of probate proceedings. If the zoning remains status quo, then subsequently the landowner can come back and seek a rezoning, going through the normal land management Guam Land Use Commission process. The bill also provides that there will be an assessment fee of about $1,280, and this assessment fee goes to the Department of Land Management, Land Survey, and Revolving Fund. So with that, people that have signed up to testify is, well, they signed up in favor. Victor Dunca, are you going to provide? Yeah, please. Are you going to provide oral testimony? No? Okay. Chris Duenas? Well, if you have something you want to say, step forward. Go ahead and identify yourself, please.
Okay, can you hear me now? Thank you. My name is Christopher Duenas. I'm here on behalf of one of the owners of Lot 2056 in the Naval Officer Housing Area. And we are in support of this bill to rezone at least our portion of that from agriculture to residential, with ultimately approval for it to be given R2 designation.
Okay.
That's all. We've already taken great expense in anticipation of seeking R2 designation for our particular lot by clearing many of the houses. Some of you may be familiar with the area, but that encompasses about maybe almost 6 acres, 7 acres of prime cliffline and upper level property.
Okay. All right.
But I'm here in support of 106-934.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Does anybody have any questions?
Senator, the bill says R2 in the title, but R in other places. Is it going to be R2 for all of them, or different R1 and R2?
Up to R2. So you know, if somebody wants to maximize the use of the property, then you would certainly want to go for R2. If you're just going to build a single residential home, then one will go to R1. And the reason why one may choose one over the other is of the real estate tax implications. But other than that, you know, it'll be up to R2.
I see the lots that are listed here, but is this how they're owned by, like, or are these already subdivided differently?
Those are large lots. Those are the basic lots, and we got that information from the Department of Land Management. Whether the basic lots have been further subdivided, that is not. We don't know.
Do you have? Are we going to be provided a list of landowners, or not really?
Do we have a list? We can provide that list.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
All right. Anybody else? Any questions?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, please.
In looking at the area, the subject area and its proximity to the Teason Parkway, and understanding what the potential development might be for the airports that are under the properties that are under the airport's jurisdiction, would it be in the best interest, or do the estate owners have an opinion about having the area designated up to commercial zone, or is it their desire to have the area in question to be specifically up to R2? And I'm just thinking about the potential development opportunities down the road, just knowing the area and its proximity to the airport properties. Is that a subject that has been brought up with the estates, and is R2 in fact the maximum that they are interested in having authority to rezone?
Well, the actually that area, we'll call it the officers' housing area, when it was returned to Gulf Guam, it was returned with the intention that it will continue to be used as a housing subdivision. I imagine if an owner, for example, where that shopette exists right now, right there in the corner, I imagine if they want to make that a commercial zone, then certainly they could probably go to the Land Use Commission and seek a variance to get it rezoned to commercial. But otherwise, the bill is just trying to bring to conclusion the transfer of that property, that tract of land, to residential zoning, since that was the original use and that was the intended use when it got returned. To the west, of course, or to the east towards the airport, there's more private property there, and those areas certainly may be more appropriate for commercial type activities.
But actually, in looking at it, it's true, though, that area is the backside of the parkway towards the cliff. So right now it has a a sense of seclusion, right? Because the parkway kind of bifurcates the commercial activity from the residential, correct? It's kind of...
That's right, yes.
Yeah.
So the parkway would be the southern and southeastern boundary of that residential area.
And I suppose the advantage to the residents is that they won't have to pay the higher of the real property assessments with an R1 or R2 as opposed to a commercial. So I was just thinking out loud about the potential for future development, but I guess it makes sense to have a first step towards at least meeting their immediate needs in this situation.
And so the situation is when land is returned from the military, it comes back to Gulf Guam and it automatically takes on the zoning of agriculture. And so to really maximize the use of that property and to continue the use of the housing, we want to take it up to residential. And that basically just means you can have greater density of buildings in that area. And you can do a lot more, of course, on an R-zone piece of property than you can with agricultural zone.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a better understanding of the scenario.
Okay. Any other? None?
Mr. Chair, is this property affected by, was this the property that was used as soccer fields before and then the airport said it was in the flight path, so we had to stop using it for soccer?
No, I don't know. I believe the area that was being used as a soccer field was to the south of this housing area, in that big green space.
Right.
So the houses that are in there right now have been existing since when the military had it.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Right now there is, it looks like there's there's an area there's some movement to rezone it as an industrial. Can you point out that area there? Right there on the corner, if you look at the cursor, there's an area right there. In fact, can you put up the exhibit that shows the rezoning sign? No. The yellow line is not Route 8. Route 8 is to the south of that. The yellow line is where the Tizam Parkway is, that newly constructed road that goes to the airport. Can you put on the exhibit that shows that rezoning? Okay. All right. At any rate, there's movement already to try and get that a piece of that property there, almost down directly south towards the middle area to rezone it as industrial. And that is going, I believe, through the Guam Land Use Commission process. Okay. We can wait for that, or you can just trust me.
Mr. Chair, I believe the soccer area that the Vice Speaker might be referring to was eventually used for the ponding basins. It was the area closer to the runway, the edge of the runway, and perhaps that's what you're referring to.
Oh, the soccer fields is over there by the school, isn't it?
There were two areas. There was one that was used temporarily as soccer fields. Those became the ponding basins.
Oh, okay.
And then there's an area that you're correct, is now private property by the schools.
Okay. All right. We're going to go ahead and we'll move on. If there's no other questions on Bill 106, we'll consider the bill as having been duly heard, and we'll move on to the next bill, which is Bill 49-34. I'll go ahead and ask the sponsor of the bill, Senator Morrison, to introduce the bill, and then we'll invite up Mr. Santos to provide testimony. So, Senator?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to briefly speak on Bill 59 as substituted by this committee. I thank the General Service Agency, which I understand recently submitted a second testimony requesting for quick action on the bill. Attorney John Thomas, Mr. Arbot Santos, and the Guam Housing and Urban Renewal Authority and the Guam Department of Education for registering their concerns with the current outdated small purchase thresholds and for offering recommendations which are closely reflected in the substitute Bill 49. The proposed small purchase threshold changes include an increase from $15,000 to $25,000 for goods and services and $50,000 to $100,000 for construction. The rewrite and deletion of certain sections in the original bill concerning an electronic procurement system and applicable sections of the Guam Administrative Rules were addressed as GSA and a number of our autonomous agencies have some form of e-procurement already in place, and as administrative rules may be addressed to appropriately take care of this to the AAA process. Changes contained in the substitute version are critical as the information agencies made it very clear during the public hearing that the issues as cost of skilled construction labor are making it very difficult, if not impossible, for them to proceed with much needed projects. So I thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing this measure to be before our community in this public hearing. I thank you for your efforts and your team for making the needed revisions to Bill 49, and I welcome testimony. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Signing up to provide testimony is Mr. Albert Santos from GURA. And while you're going to provide, and so while Mr. Santos is settling in, I just have a couple of questions of the sponsor. One, was there any particular reason why the effective date of this act will be 180 days after enactment as opposed to effective upon enactment?
Mr. Chair, I think maybe at that time when we were addressing the e-procurement prior to the deletion, I think we were suggesting some time for the agencies, particularly GSA, to make the needed adjustments regarding some of the provisions. So I'm open to working with you, Mr. Chair, and looking if this is needed, 180 days, or it could be enacted, effective immediately.
Okay, I think the latter sounds better. Okay, and so with that, Mr. Santos.
Okay, again, my name is Albert Santos, and I'm from GURA. And again, I want to thank the Senator for amending the bill as a part of our last discussion. Again, GURA is certainly excited about this. Again, annually we get monitored by HUD and our independent auditors. And one of the pressing things HUD always mentions that, that on the federal side, the small purchases are up to $150,000. And can I ask us to see how we can increase that, from the 50,000 to the 100? We have about 750 housing out there that we manage and maintain, and most of them are as old as 50 years old. And so how we get funding from HUD is that the units need to be occupied within 10, if they vacate, they need to be occupied within 10 days. For those that are requiring major repair, they'll give us up to 4 months. And we don't make that, then we lose a subsidy. The issues that we have in terms of these small purchases, and as the Senator mentioned, right now we're really confronted with labor, the shortage of labor. In all our last 4 months bid, we're seeing major increase. I was just discussing with the mayor from Talafofo how I built his baseball field in Talafofo and upgraded. I tried to do the same thing in Yamatic and Sinania, and the price came in surprisingly 3 times higher than the government's estimate. Even in our small purchases, and those even below 50,000 that we estimate, are coming in at 30–40% higher than what we normally would do it for. What's also staggering are the amount of response we get. We normally get about 9 bidders submitting bids, but of recent maybe 3 or 4. And as Mr. Brown, the last testimony, was here saying that the one big issue, and why GURA does very well, is that we pay our contractors within 30 days. I mean, that's something we guarantee. And that was one of the concerns he had when it comes to the other government contracts, that it does take a while. Even at times when we put out requests for quotation, people just say, we'll find out why they don't submit. Well, government don't pay their bill. But I said, we have to plead with them, say, no, we're GURA, we guarantee payment in 30 days. But anyway, getting back to what this $100,000 threshold does, it certainly, assure us that we're going to meet the challenges that HUD gives us in turning these units around. And more than ever, I mean, it's not trying to circumvent the system, but it certainly gives us the tools we need to actually meet their mandates in terms of reducing time. And it's as frustrating as the time frame that HUD gives us, and say 4 months. I said, man, some of the problems we also have are, actually getting materials online and the type of materials we need. But again, like I mentioned, most of our units are very old. We have the old galvanized pipe, the old cast iron, and those things are falling apart. So the works that we're seeing at our maintenance staff, they can't handle it because it's just too big, so we have to contract them out. And with this increase, that would definitely help us meet our mission. And again, I want to thank the senators for considering our last request.
Thank you. What is HUD's threshold right now for small purchases?
150,000.
150,000. What happens if, so let's say we leave it at $100,000. Yeah. Now with $100,000, you can use the small purchase option, right, to procure those services, right? And according to the regulations, you can basically go through your list of construction companies that you normally deal with, and say, company 1, I have this bid, and you call up 3 companies and say, give me your bid, and maybe within a week.
Actually, no, we give them. Okay, well, one of the dilemma in any kind of contracting, especially for the small purchase, our vacancy, we might have 3 or 4 that become vacant within a month, and we see that they require the approval for HUD, and in order to get into modernization so they can extend the subsidy. We already know for a fact that most of those units are going to exceed that threshold in that terms. So for the bigger ones where we have quite a few, we'll definitely package it for anything over the 50,000. So we'll put it out to bid. The way we do things is a little different, though. So yeah, we send out the request for a price quote, almost following the process of doing a seal bid. So we ask the contractor to be submitted by a certain date and time. We will open it in front of them too. It's nothing that, so I want people to witness that we are in fact giving it to the lowest responsibility. So never do we do anything over the phone and then decide, okay, who we're going to award this. So it's open. The people are actually there. We do require them to sign up. They're present. And again, so we inform again, the public who got it. So they see it. We open up all the package at the same time. Again, one of the concerns you would have is that, you might alienate somebody. So by doing it publicly, everybody's aware of who submitted and what was the price.
Okay, well, that's good. But so if that's the way you do it, you treat it as a normal invitation for bid. Right. What advantage does the small purchase option give you?
For a couple things. It reduces, in some of the small purchases, we don't require bonding, so it helps them. We do require the insurance, and our insurance are pretty stiff, so we do require they have a general liability for our public housing, $1 million general liability, auto insurance, workman's comp insurance. What it does, though, it eliminates that process of the promo going out and getting the ad. So I have to scope it, advertise it for no less than 15 days. And then, of course, the bid opening. Then it goes to the board for approval. So any contract over $50,000 has to be approved by the board. And the board only meets twice a month. So we save a total of almost a whole month in the small purchase process versus doing the formal bid.
Have you ever had to return funds back because you just could not spend it fast enough?
No, sir. That's it's like the last monitoring I had here. The guy that was monitoring said, "You better not plan on retiring GURA for a while."
How long has this threshold of 150,000 been in effect for HUD?
I'm sorry?
How long has that been in effect?
I believe 2 years now.
Just recent then?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, fine. Vice Speaker?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So do you think there's no impact on competition then to go this way?
No, and in fact, we do have a pretty hefty list of contractors that we emailed them, we called them up. My real concern now is that list is dwindling, as I mentioned. Like the last small ones that we had, we only got 3 bidders, and normally we get 9 bidders. Contractors love working with us. I'm sorry to brag about that, but at least they know that we do actually pay our bill on time. So I think that's the biggest fear now, is that how many of those small contractors are out there that can do the job. And it's important we do support these small contractors, by the way. They do contribute a lot in terms of into the economy.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Santos. It's really helpful to hear from you some of the challenges and the needs that your agency and our agencies are facing in procurement, and to include, I guess, the issues relating to labor shortage and the visa denials from H-2B. So I'll continue to advocate with our federal partners for federal statutory and administrative relief, but I also want to just compliment GURA and a lot of some of the other stakeholders who are coming up with really creative solutions to address some of our labor shortages and our needs. I think worth noting is Micronesia Community Development, who have in recent weeks we've seen how they're using like 65% of labor and sweat equity, and putting that in to try to address these challenges. So I really want to thank you for your testimony, and I look forward to working together with you to come up with other creative solutions, but also talking to our federal partners and try to figure out how we can find some administrative relief to the issues that we're facing. So Sujus Masi.
Let me go to the right side of the table here so that we have equal opportunity. Any questions? None? Okay. Senator Nelson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. Buenas, Mr. Santos. Thank you for being here, and thank you for testifying in favor of this bill. I just wanted to ask a question, because you hit a very pointed challenge that you face at GURA, and that's turning over these units, making it livable in a timely fashion. And I'm very grateful to Senator Morrison for introducing this measure. Can you explain any projected projects that this bill could impact in a positive way that you anticipate?
Actually, 2 weeks ago, I had to go to the board. We just recently awarded a contract that was over $50,000, and what was really got me was that the board felt that maybe I should have upped my cost estimate, because the bids that came in were like at 30% above my estimate. And it's a matter of educating them, but man, that's what we're seeing. That's a trend now. And I cannot point out the other bids I had prior to that. They were like at 200, twice or 3 times the government estimate. So in terms of us trying to meet that turnaround that's mandated to GURA by HUD, what I'm seeing now, if we don't increase that threshold, it's just going to delay me further in trying to meet some of those mandates. And as I mentioned, we do try and plan this bigger project, so we'll do like a total modernization. But our occupancy now is we're probably at 95, 96%. So when a unit does become vacant, we'll go and evaluate it and determine if it qualifies to meet the modernization requirement. And then sometimes I wonder, like, do I want to do this because HUD is going to even challenge me more, right? So, but yeah, so it definitely will have an impact in terms of us turning around, given what's happening now in with the limited workforce we have. And getting back into Senator Lee's concern, we are looking at some creative way where we can actually, I can package it and give credit to contractor to hire more of our locals, actually more specifically our tenants, our clients that are receiving welfare. So if they hire more of them, I'm going to give them points. So they might come in second, and if they're within, with $1 to 5% of that, we'll award it to them. So we can encourage them, getting people off the welfare program or hiring more of our locals. Yeah, so we are looking at other ways. The other big concern I do have is, and we're constantly looking at building affordable homes. And what's happening now, so I'm looking at what other systems can we put in place that can be used that with limited manpower, some panel design or something. But certainly there is going to be a need, again, of affordable homes. And so, yeah, we're constantly looking at other, again, how do we address the shortage in manpower by adding some incentive to some of our programs. But getting back to your questions about Senator Nelson, yeah, it would definitely drastically help us address, again, the mandates that are given to us by HUD.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Santos.
Yes, sir.
If we were to look at a $150,000 threshold, does GURA have any data to support that probably most of your renovation work will be over the 100,000 mark?
The one issue, and what are the risks, and I would suggest we keep it at 100, okay, because, you see, under the small purchase order, there are certain things you don't require the contractor. And so I'm sure, one of the biggest fears that we award a contract and they're going to get it done and they're going to get completed, and what if they walk away? So I think that 100,000, it's very manageable. Most of our projects are short-term. They're 60 days, 90 days turnaround. So you can easily manage and watch that. And you can actually detect if the contractors are not, performing or they're not meeting the schedule. Taking it up at 150 does have certain risks. And so I'll be cautious about taking it up any higher than 100,000. I'm just being honest about that.
Sure. Okay. Great. Any other comments? Go ahead and close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do want to note that Mr. Santos and GURA, even GSA, this came as a result of meeting with the agencies and seeing what their needs are. I know they have a list of priorities that I would like to work on, but I want to note, Mr. Chair, that for the record, we all know that the last time these thresholds were adjusted, or they've never been adjusted, and they've been set in place since the 1980s. So I hope the agencies will look at maybe within the protocols and working with the future legislatures that we have some mechanism in place that would come to the body before us coming to you and seeing these types of needs. We know inflation, takes part in a lot of these adjustments, and we hope that we don't wait X amount of decades before we adjust these thresholds. But I appreciate your expertise and sharing your information with the body. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Senator, do you have anything? Okay. All right. So with that, then, we'll consider Bill 49-34 as having been duly heard. Thank you very much, Mr. Santos. Moving on to Bill number 86-34, an act relative to community-based fisheries management. Senator Castro, if you'll introduce the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bill 8634 essentially introduces yet another tool that the people of Guam may use to manage their natural resources, in this case, marine resources. Ultimately, the bill, Mr. Chairman, attempts to establish in the statute the authority, the legal authority, to establish community-based fisheries managed areas in each of the respective coastal villages. I'd like to note that quite a number of parties have contributed to the bill in its final form. We've had 5 meetings. We've met with fishers, mayors, scientists, students, Manumco youth, natural resource managers. We also had the privilege of meeting with the Inalahan and Humatek communities. Special thanks, and I hope to be hearing from them shortly, to the Department of Agriculture, Bureau of Statistics and Plans, the Guam Fishermen's Cooperative, Michael Duenas, the Western Fisheries Management Council, Micronesia Conservation Coalition, Dr. Jason Biggs, who may submit testimony, members of the Public Policy Institute, both Mayor Johnny Kanata as well as Mayor Doris Lujan, Mrs. Judy Amesbury, Val Brown from NOAA, and others who had a direct hand in helping to amend the bill in its final form. Based on our research, Mr. Chairman, community-based fisheries management is a long-standing and effective conservation strategy that is practiced both internationally as well as in the contiguous U.S. We believe that it's an alternative strategy to marine protected areas and one that's regarded as being highly participatory. In addition to that, it allows for an integrated framework for coastal and marine resource protection at the municipal level to connect with the state as well as international levels of planning and management. I think the significant difference between an MPA and a community-based fisheries managed area is that it also allows the opportunity to manage the economic, recreational, and subsistence as well as cultural uses of the coastal area. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Signing up to provide testimony is Mr. Manny Cruz from the Bureau of Statistics and Plans, Mr. Matt Sablon, Director of Department of Agriculture, Ms. Alice Yee with the Public Policy Institute, and Mr. Ivan Ivan okay. So Manny, Matt, Alice Yee, they're going to provide testimony. We'll start then with Mr. Manny Cruz in the order of sign up.
Buenas and Hafadai, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, and maybe other members of the legislature. My name is Manny Cruz, the Deputy Director and Acting Director of the Bureau of Statistics and Plans. I come before your committee to testify in support of Bill number 86-34, CORE, which is an act to add a new subsection to sections 63-101 and a new section 63-117-1 and section 63-117-2 to Chapter 63, Title 5 of the Guam Code Annotated, GCA, relative to community-based fisheries management. This act shall be known and cited as the Marine Conservation Act of 2017. The act authorizes the development of community-driven fisheries management plan and empowers members of the Umatec community to effectively manage the protection and conservation of its marine resources and ecosystem. The Bureau supports the intent of Bill number 8634 as it calls for a strong community support and participation to address emerging ocean and coastal marine issues in order to achieve sustainable fisheries, preserve traditional cultural practices, and promote economic diversification and development. Although the bill's intent is to preserve and protect the Umataq marine ecosystem, the Bureau finds several concerns with the enactment of Bill numbers 8634. Our concerns are as follows. Number one, the bill cites a reference to the creation of the Marine Conservation Act of 2017. There currently exists similar reference to the Guam Ocean and Fisheries Conservation Act of 2015, which is Public Law 33-144, with respect to the, and I quote, conservation and development of Guam's ocean, fisheries, and marine resources. While specific elements of Bill number 8634 differs from Public Law 33-144, the Ocean and Fisheries Conservation Act of 2015 is already established and emphasizes the protection of our island's marine resources. Our suggestion is to remove the Marine Conservation Act of 2017 from the language on Bill number 8634. Number two, the bill as written cites that the director of the Guam Department of Agriculture, mayors, and municipal planning councils shall have the authority to designate community-based fisheries managed areas and plans. The bill does not mention the involvement of the Fishermen's Cooperative, UOG Marine Laboratory, Western Pacific Regional Fisheries Council, known as WESPAC, and other fisheries organizations in the technical planning for the designation of managed areas and plans. While the intent is to save our coastal villages involved in managing resources within their surrounding waters, the technical expertise and knowledge of local and federal laws protecting such resources are lacking at this level, and the Guam Department of Agriculture does not have the capacity or resources to take the lead on this. Any managed strategy or plan to this effect without the technical input from fisheries experts may be contrary to any federal or local mandate in existence. Number three, the Bureau supports the inclusion of the community to take ownership of their environment and to manage their resources for the overall benefit of the community. This bottom-up approach of having direct community involvement in the development of the plan to identify priority areas and address issues of concern will encourage full support from the Umataq residents to support the plan and to take action. Although the committee will be charged with enforcing the plan, the duties regarding enforcement and protection of aquatic and wildlife will rest with law enforcement agencies, including the Guam Department of Agriculture, Division of Aquatic and Wildlife Resources, DAWR, Conservation Law Enforcement Section, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and the U.S. Coast Guard. Bill number 8634 made reference to the threats of the ecosystem to be far too great for any one entity to manage and enforce. Currently, the Guam Department of Agriculture doesn't have sufficient manpower and equipment to ensure the protection of Guam's natural and marine environment, including the Umataq area. The Bureau recommends a funding provision in the bill to provide support to the Guam Department of Agriculture's Civilian Volunteer Reserve Conservation Officer Program. This will provide backup manpower for the suppression of fish and wildlife crime, preservation of law and order, and to assist in civil emergencies. And this is taken directly from 5 GCA, Chapter 63, Section 63103-1. These civilian volunteer reserve conservation officers have the ability to exercise the same function of a deputized conservation officer. The monitoring and enforcement of the rules and regulations associated with the protection of our ocean and marine resources must be supported by an appropriate, sustainable funding source. The additional funding will provide the Yamada community with additional law enforcement support of its residents to serve as civilian volunteer conservation officers. Communities who play an active role in protecting their environment will motivate others to do the same. Number 4, the bill as written calls for the Mayor and Municipal Planning Council of UMADAC to develop a community-based UMADAC fisheries management plan with technical assistance from the Director of the Guam Department of Agriculture and the Director of the Bureau of Statistics and Plans. The Bureau recommends identifying a funding source for the UMADAC Mayor and MPC to obtain technical consultancy support to guide the UMADAC community in the following. Okay, 1, to coordinate and facilitate community workshops and or meetings to engage the community to prioritize issues, set goals and objectives for the plan. Secondly, to coordinate and facilitate meetings and discussion with the Department of Agriculture, the Bureau of Statistics and Plan, University of Guam, Westpac, Fisheries Organization, federal and local, and other non-governmental organization NGOs for the mapping resource information, which is data, scientific research and studies of aquatic life and habitat of the UMADAC area for technical advice and information for the plan contents. Number 3, to produce the community-based UMADAC fisheries management plan. Number 4, to assist the UMADAC Mayor and the MPC to develop the rules and regulations for the plan, if applicable, in accordance with the Administrative Adjudication Act process. And lastly, to assist the UMADAC Mayor and MPC in carrying out the provisions of the plan in accordance with the Administrative Adjudication Act process. Number 5, it should be noted that Bill number 8634 does not reference any supporting information to affirm the need for a community-based plan in the village of UMADAC. Although the Bureau recognizes the importance of maintaining a healthy and vibrant coral reef and marine ecosystem in our communities, the bill should cite scientific evidence that supports an at-risk or overfished marine ecosystem in this area of Guam. Without existing or baseline data, it will be difficult to determine the impacts of the plan when approved and implemented. In closing, the Bureau again agrees that the support and participation of the residents of the village of UMADAC is paramount in securing a sustainable future for its residents. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, I want to thank you, Ms. Mahasi, for the opportunity to provide this testimony on Bill number 86-34. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cruz. Mr. Sablon? Identify yourself for the record, please.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, first of all, I want to thank Senator Castro for introducing the bill and the committee members. Buenos and Alfadeng, I am Matthew Sablon, the Director of the Guam Department of Agriculture. I come before your committee to testify on Bill number 86-34 COR, an act relative to community-based fisheries management, known and cited as the Marine Conservation Act of 2017. I am in support of this bill, but like previously mentioned, some concerns with Acting Director Cruz, I guess in relation to the future development of the Humata Fisheries Management Plan. I do have 3 concerns, basically with the community management plan being developed. The other one would be the monitoring and enforcement of violations. Let me start with the development. As stated in public law, the department will need to provide technical assistance to the community of Humata in the development of the community-based plan. This doesn't have much of a or minimal impact to the department, since the community will be responsible for writing and moving the plan forward. Minimal impact to the department. Number 2, the monitoring, such as the monitoring of the resources in Humatec, such as fish and coral stocks, is supposed to be the responsibility of the community. If so, then there would be minimal impact to the department. However, as mentioned, because the plan hasn't been developed, it is uncertain that the fiscal impact would be in regards to the department, referencing the monitoring the resources. It is uncertain what resources the Department of Agriculture would have to monitor. Minimal impact. Again, based on my reading with the bill introduced. The third concern would be the enforcement of violations. Again, until such time the management Humatec plan is developed, yet for future discussion. But as far as the violations, the bill needs to state specifically if the Department of Agriculture conservation officers are enforcing any violations, or is going to be the community's responsibility. If the community enforces violations, then there shouldn't be any impact to the department. Again, our resources, limited manpower. If the department enforces violation, there will be fiscal impacts as more conservation officers are needed to patrol and respond to violations. Additionally, resources may be needed, as well as vehicles, maintenance, firearms, uniforms, the whole logistical and administrative resources needed. We are very limited on manpower, but I do support this initiative as far as the community-based being in partnership with the department. At the end of the day, it is beneficial, for the community to take being part of the management plan based on their village marine areas. So I thank you, Sizos Masi, for providing me this opportunity to testify in favor of Bill number 36-34. Sizos Masi.
Thank you. Is that it from Department of Agriculture?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Senators. Thank you for being here today to hear this bill. As a law enforcement head for the Department of Agriculture, I just have some few concerns which I've addressed in our meetings already. With this legislation, we must, and I'm pretty sure you will all know this, but I need to say it so I know I have addressed it, is that any and all violations mentioned in this agreement or this bill must be spelled out, or otherwise we have no business acting. If the community-based volunteers act on a violation that they deem a violation from the way it's written out and the mayor's in charge, when do I intercede? My guys need to go out there and enforce law. But if it's just a rules and regs based on the community-based level, how is this going to be addressed? This needs to be spelled out, because as you're well aware, we're all sworn to protect the laws of Guam, all of them. So if it's not that concrete, then we should not stick our hand in there. It's a potential suit for not just me and my guys, but the department and so on. That's number one. Number two, when you talk about the reserve program, please be careful and keep in mind that we already for many years have worked diligently to implement the reserve program, and it's supposed to be for the whole island of Guam to protect all the resources, not just particular areas. So maybe the language should not say reservist from this particular area. It should remain like in all the other jurisdictions that I've trained and taught community-based volunteers as such, community-based volunteer enforcement, not reservists. Please try and refrain from using that term, because it's for the whole island of Guam, not just one particular area or two. So please bear that in mind, because we have other resource enforcement issues that we need reservists for. We're working hard with other senators here on the panel and other agencies to implement that program already. So I don't want to put an anchor on that effort by mixing it in with something else. But is there a need for it? Yes. When you talk reservists, you've got to keep in mind that the law says that even the reservists have to be post-certified. So let's say if the mayor appoints somebody that is not post-certified, I mean physical agility, the whole 9 yards, education and training, what are we going to do? We need to address that now before this is even enacted. Because all my guys right now are post-certified. All my guys right now are going through the diagnostic testing and everything in preparation for the real deal that's coming. So we got to keep that in mind as well when we talk about the community-based volunteers. Secondly is, in this topic here is, will they be armed? Because when you put the word officer, that's a powerful word. It's as powerful as a police, the word police. Will they be armed, and to what degree? Non-lethal or lethal? Because you're going to have violators that will not care about what you have to say. That's a given fact. Okay, and if these guys are going to engage with some potential violators, who's going to protect them? Themselves, or do they wait for me? I'm going to let you know now that the danger is there for them to engage somebody who they potentially say is a violator, and something might happen. So I do my best to train volunteers on how to handle that situation. But as it's going with this one right now, when you put in words like reservist, put in words like officer, you're playing with another element there. You got to be very careful. Again, and keep in mind post, please. Resources. You know our current situation. We're in the deep red. It's almost purple. I'm in deep red. I'll just leave it at that. And I need help right now. But to engage again in another mandate, 2 of my guys, my 8 guys, you know, I got to back up a little bit and say, let's look at this problem first and address that. And I appreciate all the work you're all doing right now. And this is a fine program. It works. It works. And for the community to be a stakeholder in its own resource is the smartest thing you can do, because it brings it back. I've seen it in Palau. I've seen it in Yap, Kosrae, Ponape, everywhere. They are there, diligently going out there, educating the community on resource protection, resource conservation. But there are a handful that do not care. And they will come after you with either knives, spear guns, or whatever they got. So you got to keep that in mind as well. The data that we collect, as far as the science, which doctor here should be able to access, does it spell that out? Who gets access to this data? I've seen some places where they don't want to share the data from the community to the government resource. There are existing agencies, or not agencies, businesses that will not share data. Who has access to that? Should be everyone, right? Okay, and then of course we have the law enforcement data as well. We keep books on that stuff, and potential help to gain some support from other, like NOAA, and that's another one. For my former director here has spelled out about not mentioning Westpac and U.S. Fish and other agencies involved. Nobody's mentioned NOAA OLE, NOAA Office of Law Enforcement. That needs to be in there too. Okay, that needs to be included, if in anything. So with that said, sir, I really appreciate the efforts here in this panel and everyone here on these tables here. Both sides. It is a smart move, but we need to go about it the right way from the get-go. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Ivan?
Good morning, Senators and Committee. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to voice my public opinion. and I am here today in support of the Marine Conservation Act of 2017, Bill number 86-34. I'm in support of this bill because I agree that the protection and management of our coral reefs and marine ecosystems does require the support and cooperation of a local committee or a community-based fisheries management, and here is why. The people who are going to have the strongest incentive to ensure the well-being of our coral reefs and marine ecosystems is the local community who is to rely and benefit from the well-being of our coral reefs and marine ecosystems. To me, it makes sense if someone is to rely on something, surely they would ensure that, surely they would have the incentive to make sure that that which they rely on is well taken care of. And in addition to the local community having the strongest incentive to ensure the well-being of our coral reefs and marine life, the local community whose lifestyle is heavily influenced by marine ecosystems will be best equipped with the knowledge of how to properly mitigate the threats that are posed to their lifestyle, because they would have the most experience with the nature of threat than any other government organization. So once again, I am in support of the Marine Conservation Act of 2017, and I believe through a participatory management approach, our coral reefs and marine ecosystems will be taken care of. Thank you once again for letting me voice my opinion.
Please identify yourself for the record.
I'm sorry?
Identify yourself for the record.
Oh, my name is Yvonne Squadrel.
Squadrel, okay. Ms. Alice Yee.
Good morning. My name is Alice Yee, and I'm a member of the Public Policy Institute, a student program that provides interns exposure to the island's legislative process. I am in support of the Marine Conservation Act of 2017, Bill 86-34, because I believe that this bill proposes an effective method to preserve and manage marine resources with the system of community-based fisheries management. As a local who has been living on this island for 17 years, I have seen the coastal areas deteriorate with every advancing year. This bill acknowledges the scale of the impact of the many threats that, stated in lines 8 through 10, pose great harm to marine life, investments in critical infrastructure, defenses, and the lives of the people who live in and rely upon our coastal areas. As marine resources are not easy to control or regulate, the approach of a community-based fisheries management will serve as the mediator between local fisheries and the community and create a common ground for those two entities to become connected and united. According to worldfishcenter.org, the community-based fisheries management is a strategy supported by national government policies for both small-scale and coastal fisheries and resulted with progress in the remote island of Mana'oba. Joe Sylvester, a local fisher of Mana'oba, reflects that the people of Mana'oba have seen changes not only with the marine management, but also with the people's behavior and attitudes in the community. The work they do together has resulted in cooperation and in their people working together in this community. This medium of the community-based fisheries management, as stated in lines 19 through 22, will protect, preserve, manage, and conserve aquatic life, habitat, and marine communities and ecosystems, as well as ensure the health, welfare, and integrity of marine resources for current and future generations through a more holistic ecosystem-based management approach. I am for the Marine Conservation Act of 2017, Bill 86-34. Thank you for your attention and the opportunity to voice my testimony.
Thank you very much, Ms. Yee. We have next Mr. Jason Biggs from the University of Guam Marine Lab. Is that Dr.?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, Senators. It's good to speak to you today. I didn't prepare a testimony. In fact, I just came here to support and listen first before I said anything. Like I said, I am a faculty member at the University of Guam Marine Laboratory, but I am also here as a citizen and a Chamorro practicer fisherman. I really do support this bill. I think that, you know, although it is short and quite lacking in terms of some definite details here, I think that, you know, we all know that if you empower the community, there is definitely good things to be had. And what more is important than the local people who live by the resource to take care of it? The one thing that I do see that we do have an issue with that we must really think hard about, like Officer Uggin said, is the enforcement. You know, if I look back at the 43 years that I've been alive and listening to all of my family members talk about the reef, there are big things that have happened here, and there are things that we need to do to fix it. But I think one of the major things over the years that I've been thinking about is really the community empowerment to enforce the resource and protect it themselves. You know, how we do it is going to be a difficult thing, because if you think about the transition from the Western civilization from ours, there are some major core differences in how we protect our resources. And these are differences that are laid in and now changed by the Constitution of the United States. For example, if you look back in the day, and maybe this wasn't Guam, but I could probably guarantee that it was, that if you were in your village and you saw somebody doing something wrong in the ocean, back in those days, what would we do? Well, one, we'd immediately confront the problem, and we'd do it in force. And we'd take that person, and we'd bring them back to the shore, to the village, and we'd take them to the Manamkusa chief's house, you know, wherever the public gathering is. And that person, if they survived that first encounter, they would be put in front and they wouldn't be let go. In other words, a lot of times there was a ransom that was held, or the person would be placed in front of the community, sort of in a stockade like the Pilgrims had, where the community could actually approach this person and talk to them. Well, what did you do? Why did you do that? Don't you know that's bad? Don't you know you're hurting all of us? So there's some public shame that comes along with that old way of doing things. Plus the family would be shamed. The family would have to do something. It was a hurt on all of the community, and everybody knew it. If you look at it now, we can't do that. What would happen if I went out, and I've done this before, actually, and come to somebody who's doing something wrong, breaking the law? First of all, I'm supposed to make a phone call to somebody that I probably don't know, and I'm supposed to wait for them to come. But at the same time, I'm going to come out there and try and slow them down and keep them around. And so you confront them. Well, if we go and yank them now, we've committed a crime, and we've broken the law. And so automatically, we're turning into the protectors are now the criminals. And that becomes a big problem with our community. So instead of that, we let somebody else come in and do the dirty work and pull this person out of our resource and try and fix the problem. And hopefully they'll get there in time before the person leaves. This is not always often the case, and this is very frustrating for the people who watch the resources diminish right in front of them. Second of all, if they do get there, then what happens? Well, they arrest them and they take them away. There's no public shame. There's no public notification. In fact, we don't even know the people unless they make the paper. And in fact, oftentimes they don't give the name in the paper because they're alleged criminals until 6 months, 9 months later when the trial is held. So nobody even knows who did this or why, or whose family or what. From there, they could have all kinds of confiscations and, costs of their things, fines and all the like. But then they go, if it's really severe, they go into incarceration and they disappear for a while. Once they come out, I hate to say it, but if I have family members that I haven't seen in months, what happens then? Well, we coddle them. They come back from jail, and we need to have a good transition because it's like PSTD, and they're freaked out from there, and so we coddle them and we do these things. There's no reinforcement of the negative. It's always, oh, let's take care of this person now. So, in essence, the Western way of dealing with enforcing laws is completely contrary to what our culture is like. And for this bill to at least put some of the onus and some of the responsibility and some of the power back into the community is very important. Spelling out how that enforcement happens is going to be key to this. The Marine Lab, DAWR, Department of Agriculture, and Bureau of Statistics and Plans will support this 100% with the mandates that they have, and they will give everything to it. And we have the information necessary to help revive our wild ecosystems. But when it comes to how the community is going to play a part and how the community is empowered to protect themselves will be paramount in all of this. So any way that I can help, please feel free. The Marine Laboratory is there for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Biggs. We have Felix Regis. Identify yourself and the organization you're representing.
Thank you very much. I hope I can articulate our position here as clear as possible. My name is Felix Regis, and I come here as a fisherman, as a member of the Guam Fishermen's Co-op, and as the chairman for WestPAC, Western Pacific Regional Fisheries Management Council, Guam Advisory Panel. Senators, thank you for allowing us this opportunity to present our testimony. I didn't come prepared as well because my testimony will be short, and we'll be submitting a written testimony, in fact. But in principle, we support the bill. But we too have our constituents, and those are the fishermen. And the concerns of our representation, who are the fishermen, the concerns are that every time there's any kind of policy put in place, we feel the impact immediately before anybody else does. And totally support the bill, but referring to the first paragraph, line 3, we are looked at as a threat to local fishing pressures. And we like to not look at ourselves as a threat, but rather an opportunity to educate the youth and the community on our resources. Just as a quick example, this past Sunday I was down at the Asan Cut fishing for EE, and out near the reef line, the Chargala family was doing chinchulu fishing, and there was about 10 or 12 of them. So I waited for them, and when they came ashore, they were probably about 5 adults, but the rest were all kids, and 2 were women. And when I talked to the elder of the group, he said, well, you know, they do it ever so often, but their intent is not necessarily to catch as many fish as they can, but to teach the youth the values of fishing and how to conserve and how to allow for future fishing so that they can come back and there will always be fish, especially for the kids that were there with them. And I have photos of that fishing venture for the Chargala family. But my presence here today is just to express concern. If you can take a look at, kindly look at the reference to the fishermen as not a threat, but as an opportunity. That's all, Senators. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Senator Castro, you have any questions? No, not closing. We got questions. Okay. Well, just in listening to the testimonies, I gather everybody is in support of the concept of community-based management of our fisheries resources. But on the other hand, I hear that there's still too many gaps from, that we need to fill in to get from here to there. And so, so let me ask this. From the Bureau of Planning, if the bill is reported out as is, do you still support the bill as written? Or are there a lot of gaps that need to be filled in? Turn on your mic, please. Turn on your mic, please.
Sorry. We're looking at the resources and personnel.
Okay.
I mean, if we're going to be responsible for assisting in the development of the plan, we need, an additional body.
Okay.
Because right now, my bureau is fully committed to some of the tasks that they have at hand. Now we're going to add this responsibility to one of them. I mean, that may have an impact on their work at hand. So if we are going to handle this type of management, to help in the development of the plan, we may need an additional body.
So what I hear you saying is that the concept is good, but we need to provide the resources in this legislation to be able to implement it?
Yes.
Okay. Same with Department of Agriculture?
Yes, Mr. Chair. And again, as stated in the bill, the department will assist in the technical, in the writing part for the plan. And with that inclusive with what they've been expressing, like the law enforcement part of it. So it's technical advisory as far as the department to the community. The concept is there. It's just the like you mentioned, the gaps that need to be filled. So we're still in support.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to pose that question to the two directors because your comments were politically correct. I wasn't as direct as, for example, Lieutenant Uggin's comments were. So, but I think I hear what you're saying. Vice Speaker?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for your testimony today. It's very helpful. And I agree, yeah, that this empowering the community is, of course, what we need to do. How we do it, we might need to work on. I'm curious, though, about a couple of things. What is the status, I guess, of Humatics Bay? The fish, the coral, the fishing methods that are used, and the violations that you find down there. Is it? I'm assuming you have data, or you've done. You can pull data together. Or you've probably done studies, but do we have a benchmark that we're beginning with? And would you propose them? I keep thinking we're going to let the Municipal Planning Council decide the goals for this bay. But when I look just down the road to Maritzo, much of Maritzo has been designated a preserve. So the fishermen there, I mean, we hear from them a lot, right? They've been prevented from fishing in Maritzo. So what is going to be the goal of the Humatic Municipal Planning Council? I would assume it's going to be to get some fishing done, because that's what I mean, you know, of course, to try to protect. But so what have you already recommended for Humatic, and is it possible that what has already been recognized in the Humatic Bay? What do you recommend that maybe we can start off with, and then how does that? I would think that BSP, with all the programs that it manages, and the Department of Ag and the Marine Lab, that you already have ways to get that knowledge directly to the community, and particularly if we want to get community-based conservation officers, or just more conservation reservists from Humatic, or, you know, the designated areas. I mean, I think we still have some possibilities in those avenues. Is that, what do you think?
I'm not the scientist in the group, but I'll do my best. The Department of Agriculture operates what they call a creel survey. And we have technicians and biologists that go around the island and check any type of fishing activity throughout the area that they're studying. And this information is put in a database, which is available through Department of Agriculture Fisheries Division. And again, like I said earlier, sometimes the individuals are not cooperative. They don't want to share that data. So how good is it? It varies. You're going to have to talk to the fisheries management folks about that at DAR. But there is data that they can start off on. Personally, I've seen it myself with the guys throughout the patrols. You have different types of fishing there. You have a tulai, you have a tsensun, which is similar to the tiao, or the goatfish. And you also have the other fisheries like the throw net or cast net, talaza, for species like guili and tataga. Those are just a few of them that I can tell you right off hand. But there is stock down there, and I truly believe that Mayor Kanata and the community down there, their intention with this is to work with the Senator Castro to preserve the numbers that are in the water still, so that they can continue to reproduce and provide for the people down there, and as well as anybody else that would enjoy the fisheries there. But there are stocks down there, to include a lot of parrotfish. I did some patrol checks, and there's a lot of parrotfish between Pneumatic Bay and Sela Bay. There's quite a bit of fish down there still. So I believe that's the true motivation behind this, is to preserve that so that it continues.
But have you given them recommendations on how to achieve that right now?
I believe our fisheries folks have been working with people in the past in regards to that. But traditionally, I'm from Inarajan, so we practiced that, well, in my time, teaching, like they said. I have my own story. I've written up a story about teaching responsible fishing. And that's been going on for years, which I don't think needs to be regulated. It's already taught down in our villages. But that's the main goal, I think, with this whole concept, this whole idea and piece of legislation, is to make sure that they have the tools necessary to maintain the fish stocks for the people.
May I answer the question?
Yes, please.
When I was at agriculture, Westpac assisted us in developing a community-based fisheries in Mauricio. Westpac provided the funding, and they provided the personnel to do the plan itself. So if anything, we are looking to that plan that Westpac has already done. And you know, I'm talking about the Western Regional in Hawaii. And they have some experience already in developing these type of community-based. They have a very good program in American Samoa. They have a very good program in Hilo, in Hawaii. Very workable plans. So in other words, we're not going to invent the wheel. We're going to look at those plans that they have. And the only difference between Mauricio and Pneumatic is that Mauricio, we were dealing with an MPA, Achang Bay. And there are limitations to how we deal with MPAs. Okay? But in Pneumatic, we don't have that problem. But we still need some plan how we're going to develop, the community is going to develop that plan. Because like I said, in Mauricio, there are some challenges and also, but I think with Pneumatic, if we can get that plan and work it over, look at what American Samoa did, what Hilo did, I think that would really start us off in a good...
So was the plan adopted for Mauricio or not? It's not what governs Mauricio right now, is that right?
There is a community-based developed in Mauricio.
So who's in charge of it, Westpac?
The mayor and the planning council themselves. It's part of the plan. It's part of the rules and regulations they have.
All right.
And of course, they are assisted with the conservation program from agriculture to take care of the enforcement and so forth. But all of those things are already in place.
Okay.
And I understand the Pneumatic people wanted it.
Yes.
I think they wanted this.
Was there a law that was required to put that plan in place for Mauricio?
No. The problem there is that there was some resistance because of the fishermen, but the resistance there has to do with the MPAs.
Yes.
But
yes.
in Pneumatic, we don't have that, we should not have that resistance there. Yes. So that's the difference.
All right. Dr. Biggs?
Thank you, Vice Speaker. To answer your question, to be honest with you, it's not a simple answer. First of all around Guam, we are suffering from being what's called a coastal community. Everything that we do on the land affects our resources. And one of the biggest things right now is the loss of that land and the smothering of our coral reefs. The southern end of the island is very prone to this because it's all rivers and the water can move so fast that it can bring all kinds of stuff down into our bays right after a rain. We can see it every time in the morning after a big storm like we had last night. So in terms of just this law, in terms of being sustainable for reef fish stocks, really I like to think about it as a biomass issue, and the number and the size of the fish, how much living tissue is actually out on that reef at one time. And keeping that high is very important because that's where all the next generation comes from and the like. Community management in terms of the fishing regulations and the things, they can do simple things just like stop catching stuff that you're going to put in the freezer. You know, just because that biomass hasn't been eaten yet, it's dead. It's not on the reef. It's not contributing anymore. So having something just as simple as that is important. In terms of sedimentation and the like, you know, there's a lot of initiatives going. There's some mitigation projects from the U.S. military buildup. There's Sea Grant, the University of Guam Sea Grant, and Austin Shelton working down in the Umatic Bay, revamping some of the watersheds, trying to keep some of the soil coming down. So I think, you know, the stock is there. It's not completely gone and crashed. It definitely has room to get better. So I think you're poised right now for a very good time to show positive impact, because we can't really go much farther without not fishing anymore. So any good thing on top of that is good. To add to that and try and help the people of Guam, we're trying to start up, it's been kind of tough at aquaculture facilities here. We're trying to start restocking fish as well and breeding them. That's a little difficult. A lot of them are long-lived, so it takes some time. But, you know, with this measure and putting people forward, at least, one, you empower the community and you get their true desires out. You know, nobody's actually talking about what do we want. You ask us, well, what are they going to point for? Well, the obvious answers are to eat fish forever and to practice our culture and catch them in the ways that we teach and teaching our entire culture around it. That's what they want. Now, if they're going to go, you know, they're not going to go for numbers. We're not going to have 200 parrotfish on this reef and, you know, 500 on that reef. There's no way we're ever going to get to that. But in terms of having them there and being able to sustain the people on them, I think that's definitely a goal that's reachable, and I think we can do that with this bill.
Yes. Mr. Regis.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Cruz, for bringing up the Westpac's work with the Malesa community. Yes, we've been having meetings with the community of Malesa for many years now, and things are still moving forward. We appreciate the outreach and the stewardship that Mayor Chargaloff and the leadership that is providing with that project. But it's also important to note that Westpac is also working very closely with the village of Jigo and the mayor of Jigo to perpetuate something similar to Malesa. He's got, I think most of Jigo's coastline is cliff, but there's a lot of opportunities that he sees, and we're working very closely with him on that. We are also, the Westpac is also working very closely with the Department of Ag Forestry Division on a near-term replanting of about 30,000 trees on the slopes of Manel Gayos to help control the erosion that's coming down from that hill. We've met with Mr. Mafnas, I think it was, right? And we're working with NOAA on so many other things as well to continue with the control of this erosion and fisheries-related matters.
Do you remember, Mr. Regis, the reason that the Malesa fishermen might have objected to that community-based plan?
I don't recall exactly, but I think there were several concerns, and maybe Mr. Argon can add to that. But one of them is that the Maritza Lagoon is already contaminated with PCB, and I think there's still some restrictions on take along that lagoon. The other thing that I remember is that they don't want another restriction on fishing.
Restricted right now.
Yes, there's restriction right now. Yeah.
Do you see this community-based plan as being more restrictive than in Umatic, or it can't be less restrictive, I guess, than what it is right now?
For our side, no, we don't see that as another restriction. We see it more as an opportunity to empower the villages to take ownership and stewardship of their shoreline, so that I had mentioned earlier about the continuing education, especially with the youth as they grow up, to understand their resources, what challenges that their resources face, and what they can do to make sure that there is continual fish and other stuff in the waters for them to harvest going forward.
Are there points, Mr. Uggan, where you think we should just station conservation officers? Like, is Umatic Bay one of these? Is this the issue in Umatic, that we need increased enforcement of the existing laws and rules?
Currently, we do have a plan that we cannot implement. We have a regional enforcement plan where officers are designated for certain beats, per se, where they maintain their presence in that area to be a deterrent, as well as a community advisor or educator when he meets and greets the people that are enjoying the resources. If I may just back up a little bit and give a little bit of history to the department's effort back in Mauricio that time when it was first brought up. Any time you try to implement any kind of regulation or rule to a community that has been operating in a certain manner for their whole lives is going to be very difficult. And that's basically what happened down there at that time. After the implementation of the MPAs, we started enforcing law down there, I believe, in 2002. We gave 2 years of education and outreach to the new laws that were implemented in 2000. Coming back in years later with this community-based idea, it was a bitter pill to swallow at the time. It was like, what? More regulation, more rules? No way, no way, at first. And it's understandable, you know, for a community that's already got a marine protected area, because it restricts certain fishing activities and resources. So going back to Mr. Cruz's comment, will this be like that? You better believe it will be, because if the mayor of Umatic says, hey, I think our skipjack is down this year, maybe no skipjack fishing for 6 months, that's a restriction. And do you think that the fishermen are going to like that? That goes and catch a variety of fish there all his life? It's not going to go well with that particular individual. We've seen it already. We've seen it happen a lot. So this is, no matter how you flip it, paint it, push it, pull it, it's going to be as if it's an MPA. But what's great about it is the community wants it. What's great about it is it's a very good idea. And it can work. We just got to do it right. But those are things that you have to know it's going to happen. Currently, please address this as soon as we close business here. I need vehicles. I have none for patrols. I need help. I need manpower. We're working on that here and there, but right now, I have no patrol vehicle that I can get out there right now. And I need time for somebody to address this ASAP right now. We need to get down there to these communities and start working with them as we should. It's so hard to do our jobs without the resources right now. So now this new thing coming on, we need to take a long look at my section, sir. We need it. I need your help. Seriously, for the people of Guam. Please. Thank you.
Thank you all very much, yes. And I look forward to the community's empowerment, but I am really hoping that you all would take a very, very active role and get us to the place where, in particular Umatic Bay, what you know about it and what can empower them quickest, yes. And I know you already can do this under your current mandates. Thank you.
May I bring up this matter? You know, with the Mauricio community-based plan that they had, it was in the plan, and I was part of the discussion, you know, that maybe once a year during the fiesta. And I think Mayor Chagolev did this with the crabs, that he opened up, they could catch as many crabs as, even though there's a limited, but the community wanted it, so they did it. And the other thing that they proposed there is that, like a fiesta, they could open up the MPA, for that, just for that occasion, where they can catch fish and so forth, and share it with the community. And that was sort of what we were looking at. And what is done in American Samoa and in Hilo is that the community will determine the calendar, when to fish, and all of those things. They will be the ones that will determine when the needs are. And it works. And like I said, I think Chagola where they're able to catch 2,000 crabs, within, so that then they can have it at the fiesta and share it with the community, not only, for Marisa, but for all the visitors that come there. That's the concept that we're looking at, but the community will have to do the work. They have to determine what their needs are. And like I said, with Marisa, because of the MPA, there was some limitation. But if you're going to have it in Umatic, the community will determine when the catchment are, when they will determine that time. And they will then, and the community has to be involved. They have to know, because they have to do the rules and regulation, they have to have all of these things, which is part of the plan. So I see it as a very positive thing for the community. They will be able to manage it themselves, and that's the good part. And it shows down in Marisa that they can manage it, but they just have to have the whole plan in place. Thank you.
Senator Morrison. Thank you, Mr. Chair. It seems like with the some of the topics that are being brought up regarding Umatic Bay and the fishermen. It's interesting. I grew up in that community, and seeing the fishermen. Everybody knows who the fishermen are in the community. We know down to exactly the traditions or passed on from families, and it seems like it were how we could take what they've done for generations and put it into writing. For some reason, they've been doing, I believe, a fine job on how they go about with the resources. I'm sure they still need some data from the experts on what's being impacted as a result of what they do, but I think from the fishermen's perspective and the community, as far as the council, a lot of them are all the families somehow interconnected, and knowing how they work together will work together as well if they have to go out and do a catch for a tula, setun, or kitsu, or whatever. Everyone has an understanding in that day, but it seems like maybe it's kind of translating into that process of how it goes, how they do go about preserving the bay and the other bays, Foa Bay, City Bay. But I kind of tie this into the Humata Community Project, which took some time and developing a community-based plan and getting the community involved in protecting the landscapes and educating the communities down there, working with the hunters in how they preserve their inner lands and minimize burning activity, or just stop burning. As a result of that plan that took many years, I believe with Dr. Shelton and the folks in the community and getting the youth involved, I've seen personally, because I live up in the hills and there's fires that take place behind my home. I've seen it minimized, and that's as a result of getting the community involved, getting those who use those resources, hunting particularly, to educate them and help pass it on into their youth. And it becomes a kind of reverse role where the youth are now once talking to their families and their elders and letting them know what they've learned, and actually down to planting the seed and then nurturing it and watching the forest grow and seeing that. It really helps to send a message to the community entirely. And that ties right into what we're talking about right here is getting those that are already involved, as I said, hunters, but in this case, fishermen, the community, and what resources are there to, or what type of things we still need to address that are being impacted, the resource for generations for the community. Mr. Argan, I know you talked about, you had to enforce old territorial laws, right? Regards to the RUMP, the Recreational Water Use Program, is there a jurisdiction issue? For example, if the community was to adopt a similar model, because right now it's really it's kind of a first come, first serve. The community down in Umatag, they throw up with their watercraft. They kind of have first dips, and they share it. They use the bay, and the fishermen understand that there's no fishing today. People are using it to picnic and ride their watercrafts without a RUMP program. So they kind of have that understanding. And there's a time to go fish for the tule. There's a time to use the watercrafts. Now, with respect to the RUMP program, do you have, even though you have to enforce the territorial laws of Guam with respect to the Marines, do you have issues with jurisdiction because the rangers are to enforce that, given it's administered by the Department of Parks and Recreation, or is there some kind of collaboration? So my point is if the community was to adopt a similar model, saying, hey, this is a type of, there's new things coming into play, what kind of watercrafts go into there that won't hurt our resources, but yet enjoy the bay at the same time? If they adopt that, you will still have to enforce those types of programs.
To give a best example of how this works, the dynamics of this is not as clear-cut. As the doctor pointed out, we have to deal with the Constitution also. Okay, do we have the right to restrict somebody's movement or activity if it's not identified through legislation as far as what can and cannot be done in a particular area? Now, as far as the community's level of jurisdiction, well, the mayor, it depends on if the mayor has the authority to restrict that type of activity at that certain period of time. Let's say there's a Tulay run, for example. Will he have that authority? That's where the jurisdiction lines start getting drawn in the sand. Is where does this body put the jurisdictional lines for this particular activity, for particular activities that are happening at the mayor's level? Then you have to deal with the federal guidelines. What does the federal government allow? Or are they going to intercede and say, what are you doing, Guam? You cannot do this. This is against the Constitution. And we have to also look at the Organic Act. What does the Organic Act have to say about this? Okay, and then when it gets to the violator and the punishment, in other jurisdictions around us, either you go one way or the other. Either you stay at the community level and the chief decides. In our jurisdiction, it's going to be the mayor. What would it be? Does he have that authority to impose any punishment on these particular violators, first of all? Or does he go to the state, which is the local government, and we decide through the court system? You can't do both. They tried that one time in Yap, and they're like, what are you doing? You already punished him in the community level. You can't bring him now and try and get a fine out of him. You already sent him through your system. So those are the things that you got to iron out. And the best thing you can do is go visit these places that have them and see how it works. Maybe you can do that. Or at least contact somebody that can do that for you. But that's as best I can give you, Senator, as far as where the lines are drawn.
Right, I appreciate that because I know there was times where, the park rangers, at least when I was serving at DPR, even doing the Manyahat run, even though we have a RUMP program in place, there's an understanding. Right. There's a Manyahat run going on. We have to enforce the fact that we keep mechanized or watercrafts off the shores to allow for this season and for fishermen to make their catch. So I know that there's a clear understanding in the community of the Matic. I just think like we have to find a way how that we still protect the resources going forward, and having still that authority to back up these community-based programs, to know that there's some real teeth to this, that you still have that authority to come in. Like you said, we got to spell it out so that the community knows that, hey, yes, this is under the jurisdiction of the community, but there is authority that if something can't draw the line, then that'll come in. But I just want to point out, I appreciate everyone's testimony here. I thank the author for his efforts and seeing what he's gone out to do and learn from other jurisdictions or within the Pacific and other territories and what they're doing. You mentioned Palau, Yap, and all that, how they've able to do it. But I just want to tie this in. I witnessed firsthand the Humata community project with the issues, and it's still growing. There's thousands, if not, I don't know, maybe tens of thousands of now trees all over the place. It's growing right next to my place. I'm seeing minimal fires around my place. And this all ties in because the community is involved, and they have been educated that burning is no good. And to hear the youth tell that to the community is very important. And I think this is where we're going with this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Senator Munoz?
Senator, if I may add one more comment?
Sure.
Based on what you were just saying, sir, as far as jurisdiction, agency to agency, we swear to uphold all laws of Guam when we graduate from the academies. But it appears it's coming up short, and sometimes in some legislation that it just tend to forget. So you identify an agency. Yes, it's his priority mandated to his agency, but other agencies should be spelled out that we can all enforce these laws of Guam as we swear in to our offices as officers. So that might be an idea. But if it's a rump violation, they can handle that. But if they identify while doing their job a fishing violation, then they contact us and we take that part of the case. We key case off of their case. We have a system in place already, but it needs to be spelled out in the law that we can all enforce it.
All right, thank you. Senator Munoz?
Thank you very much to the directors and everyone on the panel for your testimony. I think my question would be for Lieutenant Agan. My concern is for the volunteers, the community-based volunteers, and their safety. You said that there are obvious safety concerns for the volunteers, and I think they would be considered like the first responders, I believe, for the enforcement of this Marine Conservation Act. Do you recommend maybe a certain type of training for them so that they know how to approach, when to call you? And the other question would be, would you be the one to administer this training for the volunteers?
Yes, there is training that we can offer them and give and instruct. Then it depends at what level. Because if they're not identified as peace officers, we can only go so far. We cannot train a volunteer on lethal. We cannot do that. Because that officer is liable for his actions and the agency, let's say the mayor's office, if he takes action. So that's why we recert every 6 months to do our jobs. That puts the burden on us now, is identifying these potential threats and dealing with it legally in regards to what particular action we can take. So yes, there is training. My recommendation is take a hard look at post. It's our guideline as peace officers, and we should just follow that. No need to deviate. So there are people out there in every village that have gone through academy that have no job. Maybe you can look at them first, that they already got the post qualifications through GCC. They may be able to help out, or the mayor could send his folks through that training at GCC. That's the best guideline I can give you.
Okay, I also finally, of course, there's going to have to be some obvious campaigning and for the enactment of this. Do you recommend, though, that maybe it should be effective upon the training of the volunteers, or because you did state earlier that it's it takes a while for the community to understand that there's a new policy within their community. So do you recommend that maybe that this policy should be enacted upon the training of the volunteers? Because really that's my main concern is, they have to know what their boundaries are too as well before they cross that line, and then for their safety as well too. So I was just wondering if you think maybe it's best to enact this upon effective after the training.
As far as the officers themselves, that's the beauty about what we do is our training. Once you're done, you're done. You can go to work. That's the way it's supposed to be. That's the way it was created. But the other side of the coin is the community needs to follow the rules. So that's where you want to give a grace period, like we did with the MPAs. We gave a 2-year grace period, educating people, getting the names of the people we talked to. So after 2 years, hey, I talked to you at this date. I told you this was what's going to happen. You're here again doing the same thing. 2 years ago I talked to you, or a year ago I talked to you. So that's where the body needs to develop a grace period where the community down there can start educating the folks that utilize the area for their fishing activities.
Thank you. I don't have any more questions.
All right, thank you very much. Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, everyone. We're very excited about this new bill, and so we want to do what we can to make it better so that it focuses on all the concerns that you've raised today. And I had the opportunity, Lieutenant, again, you're constantly addressing the needs of your agency and the conservation officers, and there's been several questions asked. What is the impact now towards the fishing in Umatec? And has there been a decline in our resources in that area? And so I understand that it's hard to really see that, but when I met with you, we met with NOAA, and they monitor the fishing patterns, the development of our fish. So I'm wondering, has NOAA presented any information that could help us really understand the impact to the Umatec Bay?
Yes, there is information that can be shared with this body, and anybody interested in learning how the resource is handling at this point. I don't want to get too far into the numbers because they change, they vary. Maybe Dr. Biggs can chime in on that with that particular information. NOAA does have extensive surveys done there in that area on the health of the reef ecosystem and what is impacting the fish stocks down there. Like Senator Morrison has pointed out, we have a very big problem with forest fires in that area, and the sedimentation that comes down from the mountains and impacts the reef stock. It impacts the reef. It impacts the stock. No reef, no fish. It's very clear, very easy to understand. So those numbers that you're talking about and the activities are still there. There's a lot of fishing still going on. And that's why I'm supporting this bill, because the community is in support of helping it survive. So okay. Yes, there is impacts, but we need to look at the actual numbers before we can make a decision on that.
And so for the community, and to empower the community to take part in this fishery, has there been any licensing foreseen that would be needed? For example, because I can't arrest anyone if I'm a conservation officer. I can't arrest anyone if they catch skipjack, even though the community plan tells me we can't catch skipjack. There's no consequence put in place. So is there any foreseen licensing requirements, any regulation for the types of fish to preserve, the basic ecosystem?
We have addressed that concept several times in the past as far as fishing licenses. A lot of the fishing community are actually for it. Okay. They want the same concept like in the States, where if I'm going to purchase a license, then put that resource to better the science and the development for fishing, for example. Spend that money on science, spend that money on restoration, spend that money on education for the resource. A lot of it's restricted from me. I'm not to get involved in that because of the way it's written out. We don't want the conservation officers to what do you call it? To police me. I want you to make sure my resource stays that. That's basically how the licensing requirement in the States is done. It's very, very, like sports fish restoration, for example. I can't get any funding through that. It's spelled out very clearly. But yes, there is discussion on licensing and stuff like that. And a lot of the community is for that, the fishing community.
Okay.
We've seen support with that.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Speaker Cruz.
I have to admit I don't fish, and so this question is going to be really naive. You've mentioned a couple of times about the fact that it took you 2 years of education to get the preserve legislation out. How are we to get out the word that there's 19 different rules in each jurisdiction, and where those lines are? I mean, if you come out of Agate Marina and you're heading down, did you float into Umatic when you went past SETI? Are you still in Agate and you have Agate rules or Umatic rules? If you go out, as Mr. Ray just talked about at Essen, if you go too far south, you're in the preserve. And where is that line in the sand? I understand in Hilo there's different islands. And in Samoa there's different islands. But I'm trying to figure out how the fishermen, are going to know that you have 19 different rules and that the mayor of Umatic just announced no skipjack.
Mr. Speaker, welcome to my world. It is very hard to enforce these lines of demarcation, I'll tell you that right now, without the proper resources in place. Depending on how it's laid out at the end of the day is going to dictate those answers, sir. I can't give you that answer right now, but I will tell you this, that if there is a prominent line where we can identify through GPS or other means that we need to give the community time to understand that, like we did with the marine preserves. How much time? That's for this body to decide. I say no minimum of a year to get these regulations and rules out there for the community to actually understand and follow.
And I know Tumon Bay is a preserve. Probably shouldn't say this, but when I walk down to the beach, sometimes I see men with nets. Am I expected to call you?
If you understand the regulation regarding Tumon, you will call me. If you do not, then I won't receive your call. There are people that call us, and we go down there and we see what they're reporting, and we educate the caller. A lot of times they want to remain anonymous, but there are times when mostly, that we get people that understand the rules down there. We teach everybody that operates any type of business down there, even the beachgoers on weekends or whenever we're there available, we teach the rules and regs of the MPAs in all of them, not just Tumon. So a lot of people do know that these rules exist, and they call us on our hotline, and they tell us this is what they see. Or we ask for a picture so we can see without having to go down there firsthand what are they reporting. For example, just yesterday I got a picture of a telejero that's in the middle of the water trying to throw his net, which is by law illegal. So we have to address that. That's how we're operating right now.
And it's just an issue of jurisdiction, and if each one is different, it's going to be really difficult. I'm not sure if the fishermen have some kind of website that they can go to know what the rules are for Umatic as opposed to Agate as opposed to Maritzo, so that they know that. That was the question that I had. I mean, different islands I can understand, but one landmass with the same coast and not knowing. I mean, even in PD, how far out is the preserve from the fisheye, or how far south is it past USO? You know.
We do have education material that we pass out. We do have public outreach events that we go to. We also have volunteer groups that help us spread the word. We also have markers that are out there that help the fishermen understand these areas, these jurisdictions, and assist them with their activities on where they can and cannot go do certain types of fishing. But it's behoove the fisherman to understand that there are rules out there, and for him to understand that there are rules and regs in these particular areas. So, you know, the old saying, you know, the ignorance of the law is no excuse. But we look at that hard, and we take it to heart as far as, and try and do our best to mitigate those violations and enforce law in these particular situations. We just got help with NOAA giving us pamphlets in different languages. For example, if we got so many violators from the Chuquis community, now we have literature that we pass out to the Chuquis community at the churches or at events or even down at the beaches that says it in their language. These are the rules and regs of MPAs. So as we continue to grow, we upgrade our system as best we can with whatever resources we can get.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator Castro. Close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This has certainly been a very educational and healthy discussion. A lot of substantive contributions and good questions posed by my colleagues here. It was mentioned earlier that, the prevalence of such plans in other jurisdictions, and I have the privilege as a former member of the cabinet to visit such jurisdictions, and I think the two directors have attested or could attest that although these plans differ technically in the different aspects of these community-based management plans, there's one thing that's fundamentally the same that makes them a community-based management plan, whether it's a fisheries management plan or a terrestrial management plan. Basically, it's that at the heart of it, it's the stakeholders ultimately who have the say. Whether it's a biomass conservation strategy, as Dr. Biggs was alluding to, or frankly, as the Vice Speaker, and I always tend to have some bias towards the cultural preservation and practices of certain communities. So just to be clear, it's the author's intent to empower those village coastal communities who have the political will, such as Humatec and also in Alahan, so that they can have that legal framework, that actual process that is recognized by the territory. I don't think we begin with the budget. We begin with the plan, and then depending on the components of the plan, the budget is forthcoming. We know that a budget or a plan, in this case, let's say the Humatec management plan, may just entail in phase one a geospatial component. Geospatial, which is the technical mapping of an area for that jurisdiction. Or, as the good officer here, Lieutenant Uggan mentioned, it could include a very comprehensive enforcement component. But until that jurisdiction has taken it upon themselves to address those technical aspects of what they want to do, we won't know that. But the point is that this establishes a legal framework, much like what is called for in the statute, through a marine preserve. Unfortunately, the other fisher had left, but there was a lot of resistance to marine preserves. Well, this is a framework that may have a biomass conservation component or may not. It may include, as my colleague, the co-author mentioned, the recreational utilization of the marine area. It could be as simple as saying, this is a prohibited watercraft, or this is a strongly encouraged cultural practice, a type of fishing practice. I mean, those are the components that Humatec, as they define, will have the ability to do for themselves. And yes, I think ultimately in one of the 5, if not all 5 technical meetings that we've had, the ultimate goal, Director of Agriculture, was to identify a way that the municipality can issue its own licensure for fishing. That way there's local level of accountability, whether it's to assist with the fishery statistical data of biomass, biostock, or whether it's just to determine the type of catch or to add other components of your creel survey. We all know, well, those who are familiar with government all know that the AAA process is in place. So whatever it is that Humatec decides to adopt for themselves, it just doesn't come into existence. It has to go through this administrative process. It has to be sent to the governor. The governor has to endorse it and send it to the legislature, and if the legislature chooses, it can adopt, or the plan can actually lapse into law. That's what's built into the process. One of the things that gave rise to this legislation is that in my capacity as a member of the administration at one time, and I'm seeing it here too, so I don't think it's specific to any specific branch, is that we see that there's a disconnect sometimes between the stakeholder that's affected and state-level funding priorities, whether it's federal or local. I think that if a plan can emerge from Humatec as an example, this is where they can leverage the state, to use your word, Lieutenant Duggan, the state, to prioritize utilization of whether it's NOAA monies or agricultural monies, USDA monies, or what have you, to then be addressed to a plan that's already in place, as opposed to leaving it to the scientists. And that's my other point. I think what this does is it allows us to shift the focus away from any agenda-specific constituency. It's not just the scientists, nor is it just the fishers. It could also be the villagers. It could also be the policymakers. That's the beauty of a community-based fisheries management plan. It allows us all to have some input in the process, but those who are directly affected, in this case the village of Humatec, whether it's stormwater runoff, and that actually could be addressed in how you develop your roadways, or non-source point pollution, or erosion as a result of deforestation, or marine debris like in American Samoa. You see, American Samoa, someone mentioned that, their focus at this point in time for one of their community-based fisheries plan has nothing to do with fish biomass. It has everything to do with the utilization of the commercial port and the recreational use of their adjacent waters, specifically as it relates to their Cultural Heritage Day. So, Senator Morrison here, who championed that Chamorro Culture and Heritage Day, this is one small example of how, yes, the mayor, through this legal framework, can actually prohibit any watercraft to be deployed that day and enforce it. Now, we just have to articulate how to do that. But the point would be, on this day at that time of year, because the people of Humatec have control over their marine resource, they can specify the best use of that resource. I just want to state for the record that Mayor Johnny Cananta is in a mayor's planning council meeting at the moment, and he does reaffirm his support for the bill, and that he may be submitting written testimony in the allotted time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator Castro. So with that, we'll consider Bill number 86-34 COR as having been duly heard. Thank you very much. We'll move on to Bill number 107-34, which is an act to grant administrative jurisdiction of those portions of Lot 5, Block 15, Tract 2831 in the municipality of Talapopó that are not currently leased out to the office of the mayor. of Talafofo and the Talafofo Municipal Planning Council for agricultural purposes. Signing up is Mayor Taidigui. Well, thank you very much, Mayor, for enduring the whole morning waiting for your bill to come up.
Thank you, sir.
No.
Okay. Senators, good morning. For the record, my name is Senator Taitigui, Mayor of Talafofo. The Mayor's Office and the Municipal Planning Council support Bill number 107-34 CR. The intent of Bill number 107-34 CR is to grant Mayor's Office administrative jurisdiction portion of Lot 5, Block 15, Tract 3831 for community gardening for farming purposes. My constituents approached my office requesting land for farming purposes. In response to the request, I'm very thankful that Senator Ada introduced Bill 107-34 to promote community gardening. This bill is good for Talafofo, and we're looking forward for its passage. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Can you put up the map of the area, please? So this is a 1/50,000 view, just to show you where that property is in comparison. That's right within the village itself. Can you give the closer? Yeah. First of all, let me just explain that this property is what is called the community assigned property that was designated as part of the Land for the Landless program. The properties, Mr. Mayor, you can take a look up the camera behind me, right up there. A lot of the lots that you see there are part of the Land for the Landless program. The highlighted area is has normally been provided in these Land for the Landless subdivisions as community assigned, and that is to be made available for recreation areas or however the community deems they want to use it for. You'll see there in the map that there are some structures in there, and somehow how those got in there, but those parts are leased out. And so what is not leased out is what's going to be made available to the mayor's office and the Municipal Planning Council to be used for agricultural purposes, or otherwise we would know them as community gardens. The entire area is, the highlighted area is actually consists of 11.9 acres. Oops, I'm sorry, wrong one. It's 8.5. Yeah, the property is 8.5 acres. No. It's the entire area that's highlighted is 8.5 acres. Okay, give me 1 minute, please. 107.
The entire area, Senator, consists of 4.0 acres.
Okay. It's the entire area is 4 acres. and there's been some that's already been leased out. So the portions that are not leased out will then be made available for the community garden project. Okay. Questions, Senator Vice Speaker?
Thank you. Hafaday, Mr. Mayor.
Hafaday.
Good to see you this morning. I love the idea of a community garden. Some of the testimony from land management says that this area is currently used as a ponding basin. Is that this property? Does it look like, so their concern was that nothing be grown or built there to prevent the natural flow of the water?
No, there's not a ponding basin. There's 5 ponding basins on that area. And each of them got already dig up, everything's fenced in. So it's not included in this area here.
Okay, well, I'm going to check with land management again then, because that was their testimony. And all right, and do you? All right, I'm just going to leave it to you then. That you're going to produce some kind of rules that got to govern your
community garden. Yeah, it's cash crop like raising long beans, cucumber, eggplants. And,
well, I look forward to
looking
that.
forward for the project, for the program.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And I'm not a farmer, but I would imagine the depressed areas is probably good for planting taro and...
Plant taro, yam, raise pigs if possible.
Sure. Okay. All right. Senator Nelson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hafaday, Mayor. How are you doing today?
Hafaday.
This community farming is a very good idea. I just have, is it going to be farming within all the members within the community? How are you going to set up the community farming? What is the plan?
Everybody will have a roster. Sign up, if you want to participate in the program. Sign up and give us more portion for you to farm. It's going to be a sign up. Anybody wants to volunteer to do the garden, come over to the office and sign up. And then we'll assign you a portion of the land for your garden.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
It's in the middle of
Mayor, could you just describe where this property is in Talafofo? Where is this in Talafofo?
It's right on the cliff line there, Mabola, Pasinango. You go down the hill there. It's part of the subdivision, the Lanfilani subdivision.
Do we have,
that area.
Can you bring up that exhibit that shows it in relation to the school?
Yeah, the school,
Okay, so right there where the cursor is, that's the Talafofo Elementary School. Where's the baseball field? The baseball field is right there.
Right.
And Talafofo Elementary is where the voting takes place. Then the baseball field right across from it, and then just further south of that is the shaded area. That's where the community garden will be.
And land behind the school will be the post for the soccer field.
There's a bill in just north of the school there. I think it was Bill 108. Possibly, that's another community assigned. It is not Chamorro Land Trust property that Bill 108 proposes to set aside for a soccer field.
So that area is around, down the cliff line there. It's right on the cliff line, overlooking Ipan. It's a nice view property. So, and there is a ponding basin there, but right. It's part of the, it's part of the land, but it's already been reserved, been fed, dug up.
Yeah, so
the leftover is the land we need to, get it for the garden.
Right. So, right where you see the cursor, that's the cliff line of Talafofo, and then to the east of it, down below by the ocean, that's Ipan.
Ocean, yeah. We get a view there of the cliff.
Right. Okay.
It's a good for residential, but
Senator Morrison, do you have a question? Senator Muñoz? Yes.
You know, we gotta hit the land. See, we need to work on the land because it doesn't look good for, you know, for food stamp. Pretty soon there'll be no more food stamp, no more housing, Section 8. So we have to put these guys to work and, you know, produce some, you know, revenue for their families and food. So we're looking forward for this thing to be approved and see what happens.
Well,
see how much participation I'm going to get, but it looks very promising that we'll have a big participation. Maybe we'll come back and ask for some more land, you know, for them to accommodate them.
All right, Senator Muñoz.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Good morning.
I know you, when I went down to visit the village, you took me around that area. You showed me it too. So I just wondered, and this is a great idea, community garden. So it would be like on a first come, first served basis for people to come and sign up for a piece of the property?
It can be first come, first served.
So will it be divided like equally, or how would you divide it to who's going to sign up?
Well, it all depends what you're going to grow. See, you know, if you're going to grow a watermelon, you need bigger land. If you want to grow eggplant, cucumber. But I say the area is not as big, see, so we're going to look at it and we'll see how we distribute the land.
Okay. I know that the Island Girl Power Up in Dededo, it's really small, the community garden, and they actually have it nicely divided in equal amounts, and people can come in and build their garden. Of course, it's smaller scale, but I just imagine that that's how it's probably going to look at Telefofo. So I hope you get a lot of people coming up to sign up for it, because it definitely would help feed their family as well too.
I do have a lot of people up there, young people that are healthy and strong and ready to go. You know, they have no job, so I'm pretty sure they'll come and join us.
Okay.
You know.
Thank you.
And the only problem I'm facing is the water. We need some water to to do the garden. So I'll work with waterworks, see how we can accommodate them with agricultural water.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, if there's no other questions, we'll consider then Bill 107-34 as having been duly heard. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
And we'll get this on the next session. The next bill is Bill number 115-34. Please bring up Exhibit number 1. It's an act to grant administrative jurisdiction of Lot 8, Block 5A, in the municipality of Umataq to the Office of the Mayor and the Municipal Planning Council. So if you just go to Exhibit 1 first, please. Point out, if you see there at the top of the map, all those plotted areas, all this is part of the Land for the Landless subdivision from many years ago. You can see there's not have been that many houses that's been built on it. But right in the area there is an area of 8.5 acres, which I believe is a little less now because some of it has actually been assigned out. But that was actually set aside as a community, another one of those community assigned properties within the Land for the Landless subdivision that can be used for recreation facilities and whatnot. In fact, in that area, it was initially developed as a baseball field. You could see down at the southwest corner is a bathroom that was actually built. But it belongs to Department of Land Management, and so the purpose of the Bill 115 is to give administrative jurisdiction over to the mayor of Umataq, and in addition to that, the mayor has indicated a desire to possibly use that area, possibly to build a basketball gym or possibly another community center, mayor's office and a community center in there. There's a road that's already, the access into it is a asphalt road that goes in. There's infrastructure into there already. So essentially then the bill would give administrative jurisdiction to the mayor of UMATIC. The mayor's not here today. However, my office has been in touch with them, and they certainly are in support of the bill. Did we receive testimony? We haven't received any written testimony yet from the mayor's office. I expect that we'll be getting that. Any comments from Senator Morrison?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really appreciate this legislation as there's been ongoing efforts with the Municipal Planning Council and the mayor working with GURA on executing on restoring the Little League baseball field there. I know there was plans to look at the dimensions of the Little League field and maybe expand it a little bit to make it a so that you'll have the ability for multi-use. Mr. Chair, I know you have here on section 2, page 2, a time frame to provide a land use plan, but since there's ongoing efforts with GURA, my understanding, they've already put a bid out regarding the Little League field, and knowing that that's ongoing and looking at the markers, it's kind of the entire section there. How would this impact that effort, knowing that you're requiring a land use plan? Would be open, knowing that that's ongoing, that we look at this section here that require a land use plan?
Well, basically what section 2 on page 2 referring to is that, just basically articulate, wait a minute.
Item B.
Yeah, hold on. Oh, that's basically just asking the UMATIC mayor and the Municipal Planning Council to articulate by resolution how they intend to utilize the property. Because that's being requested in the bill simply because it was initially started out as a baseball field or Little League field, but then the mayor's office indicated they may possibly want to use it for to try and get funding from GURA to build possibly a basketball gym, possibly build, many possibilities. So all we're asking is, please, within 12 months, identify how you intend to use the property, and if that's not, failure to adopt a land use plan shall cause administrative jurisdiction to expire, and the property shall automatically transfer to the Chamorro Land Trust Commission. So it would just, similar to, for example, the bill that just previous to this, we've identified an area which belongs to the under the Land for the Landless program. They already know what they want to use it for. The administrative jurisdiction is being given over for the purpose of establishing a community garden. In this particular case, it wasn't quite clear just how it was to be used. So we're asking that, identify that within the next 12 months so that there is a specific use for that property.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The adjacent lots there to the left of the track, have those been already administered or are in process of being provided to those families that are applied for those lands? Are those already given out? Are they registered? I know a couple families are up in that area, but I'm not sure. To the bottom left there.
Yeah, I believe some of those, I would have to check with my staff.
Senator, those lots were reserved by a previous public law as an exchange for properties taken for the reconstruction of Route 2. I believe those lots went to the Gulfigan families.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I thank you, Mr. Chair, for looking at this this area, because I know it was limited in space at the time when I know we were at Gura with the mayor and the council members on how could we expand it further with the recreation facilities that are already there. It's just a little league field, and making it more of a multi-use. So I appreciate this legislation, Chairman.
Okay. Any other questions? Well,
Mr. Chair, so Senator if you don't mind me asking Senator Morrison or
sure,
Mr. Chair, if you know, so is there a baseball field that's being bid out for this exact lot or for an adjacent lot?
The same lot. The same lot, but they were limited in
too small.
Yeah, and as far as what they were trying to do to expand it, but this opens it up now for the ability to expand several feet now.
Is this a view property?
No.
View, don't.
View?
Yeah.
No, it's not a view lot. It's kind of like down in a depression, right? So the view lot, can you bring up the other exhibit?
All right.
So the view lots are right up to the top there. You can see to the left, that would be the ocean out there. But those are the view lots up there.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr.
Okay. All right. If there's no other questions, we'll consider Bill 115-34 as having been duly heard. And with that, we will adjourn. We will adjourn this public hearing, and it is now 12:02 p.m. Thank you.